The deal that saved the currency. It was never announced as a rescue. No treaty was signed. No summit declared victory. Yet without it, a currency would have fractured under pressure that markets could already feel. To understand why this deal mattered, we need to look at how currency survived moments when confidence thins faster than fundamentals. Europe's monetary union was built on rules, but it was sustained by belief. When belief wavered, rules alone were not enough. Something else had to intervene. The story begins during a period of spreading doubt. Bond markets were restless. Yield gaps widened unevenly. No single country was insolvent, but trust in the collective promise was eroding. Investors were not betting against numbers. They were betting against coordination. Inside European institutions, the danger was obvious. Formal mechanisms existed, but using them openly risked confirming fear. Public action could harden speculation. Silence could allow doubt to metastasize. The solution had to restore belief without triggering alarm. The deal took shape quietly across institutions rather than governments. It was not about transferring money. It was about transferring certainty. Commitments were aligned, timelines synchronized, backstops were positioned so that markets would feel their presence without seeing their activation. No announcement explained it. Instead, behavior changed. Funding stabilized. Pressure eased. Spreads narrowed before any policy speech could justify the move. Markets sensed coordination had arrived, even if they could not point to where. What made the deal powerful was ambiguity. It did not specify how far support would go. It made clear that fragmentation would not be allowed. That clarity mattered more than detail. Confidence returned because uncertainty retreated. The currency did not survive because it was defended openly. It survived because someone convinced the system that defense was inevitable. The deal that saved the currency was not a promise written down. It was a shared understanding that breaking the system would cost more than preserving it. And once that understanding took hold, markets stepped back from the edge without ever being told they were there. The effect was immediate, though no one could explain why. Traders adjusted positions without waiting for confirmation. Central banks altered posture without issuing new mandates. Institutions behaved as if a line had been drawn, even though no one could see it. Inside markets, the shift felt psychological rather than mechanical. Fear did not vanish. It lost momentum. Betting against the currency suddenly carried a different risk. The risk of standing alone against coordination that could not yet be measured. That asymmetry changed behavior faster than any rule could have. Behind the scenes, alignment deepened. Liquidity channels were reinforced quietly. Swap lines were prepared, not announced. Legal interpretations were clarified internally so action could be taken instantly if needed. The system was not activated. It was primed. What made the deal resilient was shared interest. No single institution owned it. No government could be blamed for it. Each participant retained deniability while contributing credibility. The arrangement existed everywhere and nowhere at once. Markets tested the edges cautiously. Small probes. Short-lived pressure. Each time, resistance appeared without escalation. The absence of reaction confirmed the presence of capacity. The system did not need to prove itself. It needed to be believed. Critics argued that this was governance by implication rather than mandate. They were correct. But implication worked because fragmentation would have been more costly than compromise. The deal did not require agreement on everything, only agreement on what could not be allowed to fail. As confidence returned, the danger shifted. Ambiguity that stabilizes in crisis can distort in calm. Once belief hardened, markets began assuming protection as permanent rather than conditional. The deal had saved the currency, but it had also introduced a new dependency. The challenge ahead was clear. How do you preserve the power of an unspoken guarantee without letting it become a permanent assumption? Because deals made in silence are strongest at the moment they are needed most and weakest when they are forgotten. The tension returned not as panic, but as complacency. With the currency stabilized, markets began treating the unspoken deal as permanent architecture rather than emergency alignment. Risk premiums compressed further. Divergence was ignored. Protection was priced in as certainty. Inside institutions, the shift raised concern. What had been designed, as a backstop, was becoming baseline. The very ambiguity that had restored confidence now threatened to weaken discipline. When support is assumed, signals lose force. Policymakers faced a familiar dilemma. Clarifying limits risked unsettling markets. Remaining silent risked entrenching belief. The deal had saved the currency, but it could not be allowed to replace fundamentals indefinitely. Adjustment had to occur without breaking confidence. The response came through calibration rather than reversal. Signals were introduced gradually. Language emphasized conditionality. Tools were referenced more explicitly. The message was careful but firm. Coordination existed, but it was not unconditional. Markets reacted with friction, not fear. Pricing adjusted, some positions unwound. Volatility returned briefly, reminding participants that protection had boundaries. The deal had not disappeared. It had been reframed. This recalibration mattered. It restored the deal's original purpose, as a deterrent, not a subsidy. The currency remained intact because belief was anchored to resolve, not convenience. Markets relearned that confidence carries responsibility. The episode revealed the life cycle of silent agreements. They stabilized systems at their most fragile moments, but left unexamined, they could distort behavior long after danger has passed. The deal that saved the currency was never meant to be remembered. It was meant to work. And once it had to fade, carefully, deliberately, and without undoing what it had preserved. Because the most powerful guarantees are those that know when to withdraw. The transition was gradual, almost imperceptible. No single moment marked the end of the deal's influence. Instead, markets slowly relearned how to stand without leaning on it. Pricing regained texture. Differences mattered again. Confidence rested more on fundamentals than on assumption. Institutions adjusted their posture accordingly. Risk management shifted back toward assessment rather than reliance. The currency no longer needed to be defended by belief alone. It was supported by structure reinforced during the period of calm the deal had created. Policymakers viewed the outcome as success without celebration. The deal had done exactly what it was meant to do. It stopped a fracture at the moment when fear threatened to outrun reality. And then, just as importantly, it receded before becoming a permanent crutch. What Europe learned was subtle but critical. Not all rescues involve money. Some involve conviction. When confidence collapses faster than balance sheets, restoring belief can be more powerful than deploying capital. The deal that saved the currency did not appear in textbooks. It left no signature. Yet its impact reshaped how Europe understands monetary stability. Protection must be credible, but not comfortable. Visible, but not guaranteed. The currency survived not because it was propped up indefinitely, but because belief was restored long enough for structure to reassert itself. And that may be the quiet genius of Europe's system. When it works best, it acts just long enough to make its own intervention unnecessary. Subscribe to join the journey. The